Hello Year 10. Today we're going to be talking to you about the poem The Farmer's Bride in the Love and Relationships Anthology by Charlotte Mew. So to start off today, we're just going to give you a quick summary of the poem. So this poem is about a man who tells us that he is really frustrated. And the reason he's frustrated is because he's married somebody, his bride, but she won't be physical with him. In other words, she won't have sex with him, she won't be intimate with him. So what we're going to do first of all is we're just going to have a look at the poem just to see what's happening as we go along. Who'd like to start us off?
Well, we find out in the first stanza that he married his wife 3 summers ago, so 3 years ago. And then as we progress through the poem, we realize that she tries to escape and they catch her and they trap her. And he explains how he feels knowing that she doesn't like him back.
Okay, yeah, also in that first stanza we can see the fact the farmer, the person whose voice we can hear, the person who's speaking, he chose her, not the other way around, so we can see already that he's got sort of the control in the relationship. Moving on to this, we understand that she, the bride, feels a lot more comfortable in nature and around animals than she does with people and with him more specifically, which makes him feel a bit more frustrated.
It's probably worth pointing out as well at this point that this poem is one of the older poems that was written quite a long time ago. So you've got to remember as well when you're reading this poem that relationships between men and women were very different, and it was expected that the man would be in charge. So that's something that's really important to remember as we're reading. So we can see as we carry on, if we look at the third stanza, he's happy with some of the things that she does. She does her housework, she works around the house, but whenever any men come near her, that's when she starts to become quite afraid, and that's when she starts to retreat to the animals, to go back and be with the animals, because that's where she feels safe. As we carry on through the poem, we can see that time is passing as well. So the short days shorten and the oaks are brown. That seems to suggest that it's now winter time, because that's when the days get shorter. And we can see that there's a reference as well to Christmas time. So we can see that he's getting more and more frustrated as time goes on in this relationship, that she still won't be with him. At the end of the poem, it ends with her locking herself in the attic, which is right at the top of the house. And the farmer is expressing how frustrated he is and also how much he wants her as well. So we can see that he's going on about what she looks like. The brown of her eyes, her hair.
Yeah, her hair. He's repeating it, so he's using repetition. And I think it might show that he's maybe obsessed with her, that he really, really wants her. That's why he's focusing a lot on her hair. And just anything about her. You know, if you repeat something, it is something important. So her maybe her physical body or the relationship that he doesn't have with her is important, that even if he sees a little bit about her, he remembers it.
Okay, so that's something that we could talk about in our structure paragraph, isn't it? The use of repetition. And as well as that, looking at the end of the poem, because it's always a good example with structure to look at beginnings and look at ends. We can see that the use of punctuation is quite interesting as well. We've got lots of exclamation marks. So that suggests that perhaps he's shouting or he's saying something in a really strong way. So perhaps that means that he really, really wants her. Or you could also say that maybe that shows how angry or frustrated he is that she still won't be with him after all this time. So there would be 2 really good points to talk about for structure. Let's have a little think about language as well. Do we notice any common words that we see, any types of words?
We see a lot of nouns of different types of animals. We've got rabbits, birds, mouse. What we notice about these kinds of animals is the fact that they're weak animals, they're vulnerable, they're animals of prey. And the poet here is comparing this woman, this bride, to these weak and vulnerable animals. Maybe that's why she gets along with him so well. So we understand that the woman here is being seen as vulnerable and weak.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, because on line 15 it says flying like a hare. So we know that a simile is comparing something using like or as, and the writer is comparing it to a hare. Now a hare is a rabbit. So a rabbit is something that is being chased, then is a sense of a prey. So people hunt rabbits for food and animals hunt rabbit. So she's trying her best to run away from this situation as fast as possible. But they find her and they bring her right back, which shows that he has control over her and she's like an animal. Maybe she doesn't feel like a human.
That would probably be a really good point too, if you wanted to challenge yourself to link in some context. So Charlotte Mew, the poet who wrote this poem, was somebody who had a really, really horrible childhood. Three of her brothers and sisters actually died when she was a little girl. So you can imagine that probably had lots of negative effects on her. So perhaps the woman in this poem who's very frightened, very afraid, we could maybe link that really nicely to the poet's life and how she perhaps felt very afraid and very alone at points in her life as well. As well as that, she was actually a lesbian, she was homosexual, so she was attracted to other women. And at the time that this poem was written, that was actually illegal. You couldn't have a relationship with somebody of the same sex at all. So lots of the trapped feelings that you see in this poem, the fact that the bride feels very trapped, maybe we could link that to the idea that perhaps the poet herself, at points in her life, she might have felt very trapped as well because she couldn't be with the person that she loved. What about the use of colour? Because there's quite a lot of references at the end, isn't there? We've got references to black and white and red, and we've also got a mention of Christmas time. So there's probably quite a lot that we could talk about with that in this poem.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at line 38 and line 39, you see that the quotation, "On the black earth spread white with rime, the berries redden up to Christmas time." Now, when I think about Christmas, I think about happiness, I think about family. I generally think of it quite positive. But if you look a little bit deeper and you look at the adjective black, we know that black can maybe represent that the husband is evil, trying to maybe control her. And if you look at the adjective white, maybe she's quite pure. Maybe she's quite weak because black is a stronger color than white. And if you wanted to get a little bit extra marks, you can maybe talk about how, because black is the opposite of white, that there is maybe a juxtaposition used. So a juxtaposition is when you compare two opposites. So maybe the husband is the opposite of the wife.
Yeah, that would be a really, really good point. And just on that note of Christmas as well, if you think about the story of Christmas and what that actually is, well, it's actually, the Christian story is that that's when baby Jesus was born, and that's when Jesus came into the world. So that links to what the farmer's saying about his wife. He's saying the main reason he's really frustrated is not just that he desires her, but it's also that she won't give him any children. And it was really important to men when this poem was written in that era that women would give them children because that's how the family was carried on. So it's like this idea that Christmas is a story all about birth. She's not allowing him to have that. So that would be a good link as well. Let's think about, because remember in the exam we're going to have to link to some other poems as well. Are there any other poems that would have similar or contrasting ideas that we could link this to?
I would definitely say love's philosophy is something that we can link it to. Because I feel like one of the main themes in this poem is about rejection, because the wife is not, like Miss Bowman said, not having sex with him, not giving him children, not showing him love. And in love's philosophy, the narrator is also arguing, why am I not with the person that I love? So there's clearly a similar link in that they both feel like they haven't got the person that they love.
Definitely. Another poem as well, which shows the same amount of desire, I would say, that the farmer has in The Farmer's Bride is Porphyria's Lover. Because in Porphyria's Lover, remember, that's a man who is talking as well and is telling us about his lover that at the end of the poem he actually kills. So we've got the theme of desire, but we've also got there that sense of danger as well. Just as the bride in this poem feels that the farmer perhaps is dangerous and that's why she hides herself away with the animals, in Porphyria's Lover we actually see that the man kills his lover and is obviously very dangerous. So that would be a link that we could make as well.
With regards to desire and the lustful feelings that come across perhaps in The Farmer's Bride. We could also link it to Sonnet 29. There's a lot of strong, passionate feelings that come across. A little bit of frustration as well, similar to The Farmer's Bride, because we feel that this person feels a bit lonely, they feel a bit isolated away from the person they want to be with. So that could very, very clearly link to how frustrated and perhaps emotionally isolated the farmer in Farmer's Bride feels also.
So there's lots that you could think about there, and obviously there's other ideas as well that we haven't covered today, but that should give you plenty to talk about if you were asked to write about this poem. So we hope that's been helpful, and record another podcast next week.
Yep.
See you then. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.